Stacy is traveling and is not able to join. She did send me her proxy for any votes that might be required. So
Rick,
with that,
Rick, can I interrupt you for 1 second? Bob
Sure.
R, can you identify yourself? And James, can you identify yourselves, please? Who is James? Who is Bob R?
Yeah, it's James Manzanares.
Bob R, can you identify yourself, please? Ah, Bob Rubin. Okay, thank you. All right, Rick, sorry.
okay, no problem. So with that, John, we can go ahead and establish the quorum.
Yeah, I had to unmute myself. Well, yeah, I can certify that there is a quorum present, also that the board members were properly notified of the meeting and that the owners were made aware of the meeting through the posting of the agenda on the website and in the lobby.
Okay, we can go ahead and do the approval of the past minutes.
Yeah, thanks. I had sent out 2 sets of minutes, one from our January meeting, which was a regular meeting, and then one from the special meeting that was held on April 22nd. And we can either handle them one at a time, or we can just have one motion to approve them both. I'm not sure what the pleasure of the board is.
I'd say we can just combine them and approve them both at the same time.
Okay, in that case, I will make a motion that the board approve the minutes for both meetings.
Second.
Is
So
it-
Ron seconded.
Ron seconded.
Ron, okay, very well, thank you.
Okay, with that, then we'll welcome everybody.
We got to vote on it, Rick.
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Then the approval of the meeting, the minutes are completed. I want to welcome everybody. Had a few things going on here recently. Probably one of the most important things is we need everybody to be fire conscious. A lot of fires in the area and throughout the Southwest area. So it's real important that everyone is very careful. Try not to drive on get off pavement. Anybody that smokes, be especially careful with their cigar butts, things of that nature. We had a change in maintenance. We'll discuss that a little bit further. We've got a temporary company named BHP who's providing our maintenance services right now, and that they've done an excellent job so far. Landscaping, we've resurrected landscaping committee. Got plans started up in High Point, and we'll discuss that a little bit further. And then John has a program that he'd like to roll out to everybody that's looks like an excellent opportunity for everybody, and he'll discuss that. And then another thing that rumored gone around about a pipe project in the lodge, and we'll address that further going on. So one thing too, Gary sent out an email to the board yesterday, and Joe expanded it a little bit further. What Gary sent out was the average price per square foot in Tamaron in 2012 was $89.31. So far this year, through 19 sales, the average price per square foot is $466.33. And Joe broke it down a little bit further. Price is $421 in the lodge and $522 in the outlying clusters. And in 2012, it was $60 and $111. So we've seen some excellent gains in the price of our property, and a lot of that is due to a lot of the things that the past boards have completed and done, and the economic situation in Colorado. So a lot of good things going on. Okay, moving on into the review of the financials. Elisa,
You ready?
we're ready.
Okay. Gary's gonna share his screen. Okay, so cash flow is good. You can see in these the bank balances here. We're doing fine there. If you scroll down a little bit, Gary, but more, you can see accounts receivable there, 232. You can stop there. That's gone down quite significantly as of today. So this number is as of April 30th. We're down to 45,000. And I just looked, we only have, I believe, 4 owners who are 90 days past due. So that's pretty good. I don't think anything else is of note on this, on the balance sheet, unless anybody has any questions there. On the operating. Okay. Maintenance revenue, we will be billing here again in June for the, let's see, March, April, and May. So that will catch up to budget. It'll be interesting to see where that is. We've been a little low in the past. But that should catch right up. The commercial space rental, we have received the rental payment from the real estate office, so that will catch right back up. The other incomes are pretty normal there. You scroll down to the expenses, legal fees are just up a slight bit. We had some costs with the water and sewer, but that's to be done. So I expect those would be back to normal. Marketing and promotions down 576 down here. We have 1,800. That is over budget because we had to negotiate 3 months of additional payments that we hadn't budgeted for to our marketing person from the past. So that should stay. I don't expect there's too much more going in that line. Down a little bit. We are way over on snow removal. Some of that could have been a little bit of, sorry, a little bit of mismanagement on the snow, but we did have quite a bit of snow. We've looked into years past, and in years when there was quite a bit of snow, I'm sorry, we didn't spend quite that much, and we probably will have some expenses in December. So this number will probably be way over budget. I'll take a sip of too much talking. Okay. I don't have anything else noted on that page. If you go a little lower, Gary, you can see computer and office supplies is high, but that's because we pay our for our computer services upfront for the whole year. So that will even out. Personnel expenses, salaries are down, and those are obviously going to be down on this line quite a bit after this report. Everything else is right in line on that part. We move to the capital expenses. Okay, we have not done, we are scheduled with some bat mitigation. We also will be doing that fire suppression pump soon. Signage is underway. Those are we were paying half of you may have seen around the property, the starting of the signs in each of the outlying areas for the Gamble Oak and the High Point. We're splitting the cost of those signs with Glacier. This lodge plumbing project, we've spent a little more, but I believe we're done paying for that after that. There won't be any more expenses if I'm correct. We have spent a little more on the planting. This is the planting seeds, mulch and trees up at High Point. We've spent a little more there in May. And we also have finished I think he's finished. He has been here this week, the dispensable space, I don't remember the company name, but he's been here. Deep Roots has been here, and I believe they're finished today or soon with that. Permanent reserve now. Of note here, we're down a little bit in the it looks like it doesn't look, it looks a little low in the permanent reserve account, but that's because we did our transfer. You see that we've got 145,000 coming from the contribution from operating, but we also have the 275,000 going over to capital for projects. And that's about a difference of 130,000. So we're a little low right now, but as we make these contributions back, that account will catch back up. That's all I have on that page. The only thing really of note on, if you have there, service and security, is again, the office supplies, computer services. That is the prepayment of the computer services, but everything else is right in line with budget on that. And that's all I have.
Okay,
Alyssa, I have a question. This is Jerry. And that is, where, if anywhere, does the BHP work appear in the financials now?
So they will show up. We did not pay them anything in April, so they'll start showing up in May, and I will have a separate line for them. I believe it is where it will show up. You probably don't care where it shows up. It'll be on the operating budget. In May, under the 601, we're putting that in personnel expenses near the, because it offsets salaries formerly paid to the maintenance staff.
does anybody have any other questions? Okay, then we'll go ahead and move over to the reports. For architectural review, the first one was unit 842. And I had sent out a picture to everybody. What they want to do is just add a window at the top of their steps to their smaller unit upstairs. And it's similar to one we approved last year. So if no one has a question or any concerns with that one, I would make a motion that we approve the window for unit 842.
I'll second that, Rick.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, well then, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who seconded?
Greg,
Okay.
Okay, and I vote affirmative for Stacy. So that would be anyone opposed. Okay, John, that'd be 7-0.
And Rick, let me ask you this. Did you vote for her on the minutes too?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Okay, the second one is unit 711. And what this is, when we did the remodels down in Pine Cone and Gamble Oak, and this will kind of dovetail into the next thing I want to talk about. The owners had the option of having a storm door installed. And, or excuse me, yeah, a storm door. And the owner of unit 711 just is requesting that they be allowed to have a storm door installed. And being as we've done it with everyone else, I would go ahead and make a motion that we approve that the owner of 711 be able to install a storm door subject to approval as far as quality and color.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Rick,
Uh,
before you go, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Now, is the door that we had standard when we did the remodels, is that door still available?
It is not. Steve Meinrich was contacted and he said he does not have any more of those.
But I mean, does the company even make them anymore?
That I do not know. I believe they were purchased at Bayfield Hardware. I thought I'd seen something as far as, I believe it's an Anderson door.
Okay, I was just curious. I mean, if we can match it, that would be ideal.
Yeah, yeah. And that kind of goes to another thing that I wanted to discuss to see whether we needed to, I guess we need to take a vote. There's been interest by owners in High Point to go ahead and have the option of having storm doors installed up there. I did go to Home Depot last year or the year before and actually priced and looked at some doors. We can get some group pricing. At the time, it was a difference of about $100 installed. So is that, I guess we need to formally approve by the board that we be able to go forward on that.
You also need to take a vote on the request of 7-Eleven.
Right. Okay, so all in favor of approving the motion for 7-Eleven? Aye.
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 Aye for Stacy. Anyone opposed? Okay, 7-0, John.
Got it?
And then as far as High Point up there. Any discussion on that?
Well, I think, we should follow the same protocol that we've done on all of the exterior remodels, because the doors obviously are very, I mean, they're a prominent feature, and I don't know
Yeah.
that you want, I don't know if you want every owner to do whatever he wants, so I would think.
No, it would be a group project. I guess what we can do is, once we get to that point and have a list of everyone that wants to, then we can go ahead and more formally do that.
Yeah, I think the board probably should at least take a look at the doors before they approve them.
Okay. Okay.
I think we need to do a little bit of homework too, as to what's the, are those doors going to change? I mean, it's like, as soon as you approve something, then Anderson doesn't make that door anymore. So I think we need to have discussion as to what is the longevity of that door? Is it going to be replaced with another door?
Okay.
You're going to
And
have a,
maybe also, Rick, if, let's just say that 50 owners up there opt to buy the approved storm door, do we want to also buy about 10 more and have them in reserve in case somebody changes their mind? Oh, I'd like to do that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's a real good idea. Okay.
Hey, Rick, do we have any idea of like how many people, I mean, I know this is just kind of starting, but like how many people really would be interested in that or not?
Kind of informally, I know of at least 20.
Really?
Yeah, and Lynette Thibodeau had contacted me. The Thibodeaus were also interested in getting one there in their unit in Pinecone because they didn't have one. She had contacted me and I had said whenever we do something in High Point, I would let her know. But yeah, I think if we put it out, we may have in the neighborhood of at least 30, 35.
Okay.
So,
Rick, can I interject something, please?
sure.
As far as buying extra doors is concerned, what happened down in Gamble Oak with the remodel there was owners were offered the option to get a storm door, and a number of them opted for that. The owners who already had storm doors were given the option of keeping theirs if they wanted to, which means that there are a couple of outlier doors down there, but that's just the way that it is. That was done in 2008. About, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, a number of people wanted storm doors. So Steve Meinrich ordered, I think it was 12 or 14 of them, and all of those got installed. And he can't get those doors anymore. So that's why 7-Eleven is looking at Home Depot. But buying extra doors is probably a good idea because sometime down the road, you're going to have people who want them. Very few people, I've never heard of anybody who wants to take out their storm door. People always want to add a storm door. So get some extra ones.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll explore that further and get back with everybody as far as what I can find out on them. So, okay, well,
Rick, this is Jerry.
yes,
Somebody just asked again, what is the estimated cost installed per door?
when I went to Home Depot previously, to just get one installed on your own, it'd have been 600, and with group pricing, it would be 500. Okay. Anything else on architectural review? Okay. I want to go ahead and defer rules and regulations to the last of the reports. As far as rental program, I've got an email from Heather here. I'll read real quick. Says we're seeing a trend where rentals are beginning to normalize a little more than they have in the past 2 years during COVID. The reason for this is kids actually had a school year and people are back working in person. So we will actually experience true off seasons this year, and summer won't kick in fully until kids are out of school. We still expect a strong summer season, but it will likely run from mid-June through the end of August, whereas the past 2 years have been more like May through September. We are also seeing really short booking windows, particularly for smaller properties. The booking window for smaller units are regularly within a 7-day period prior to arrival, including 1 day prior. So sounds like they're down a little bit, but she still expects a good year. I know on the news today here in Denver, they're talking about people in Colorado are shortening their trips from planned 300 miles to about 100 miles due to gas prices. So
Rick,
we'll,
yeah, I'd like to have a copy of that email because I'm going to make that an attachment to the minutes.
okay,
So if you could forward that email to me, and then also, Elisa, I always include a paper copy as an attachment of the financial report.
Absolutely.
okay. You will have it.
Thank you.
Okay, then moving on to the property report. Just to kind of introduce, we had, Tim Broren had resigned back at the end of April. And what we did was we temporarily contracted with a company called BHP. One of the owners being Greg Petit, who is a former owner and does a lot of remodel work at Tamaron. And he has a group of men that have come in so far, and they've done an excellent job so far. What we are doing is we're using them through the end of October. And then it's, when we have our budget meeting, we can decide if we'd like to make that a more permanent arrangement or we want to do something else. We did place an ad in Indeed for a replacement for Tim. We had 9 applicants. 2 of them were from maintenance people we had on staff at the time. One of them later withdrew his application. And then the other, there was no one that had any supervisory experience. One guy lived in Utah and said he was willing to relocate for a $50,000 a year job, which in this market, kind of makes you wonder. So one of them was a automotive mechanic that applied for the maintenance position. So we really didn't have a good response for a replacement manager. So anyway, Paige has some information as far as BHP, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to her.
I'm gonna stand where everybody online can see me. Okay. So BHP came in and they really hit the ground running. They were learning things and learning our property, and they took over the beginning of May with about 20 work orders that were pending. So about 40 to 60 unanswered messages and emails and things. So they really hit the ground running. They've made a really great connection with Glacier Club. So they're really working with Glacier Club. They're starting to get a working relationship with them. They have done a lot of things in-house, if you will. So they have a lot of staff that is good with plumbing, electrical, working on appliances, things like that. So they've really saved our owners quite a bit of money because we don't have to hire out someone to come on site to fix hot water heaters, a washer and dryer, a dishwasher or something else that they've done. They've done a lot of plumbing stuff as well. So those are all things that they've actually been able to do in-house, and we haven't had to call someone else. And our owners haven't had to wait to get things like that fixed. So those are all things that they've been able to do. They've worked a lot on our sprinkler and irrigation systems. So they've been working pretty much nonstop on that since they've gotten here. They were in kind of a little, they needed some love whenever BHP showed up. So they've gone around to all the areas. They've worked on broken sprinklers, sprinkler lines underneath the buildings that they were able to fix. There were live breaks that they were able to fix. They have fixed a sump pump in base camp in the restaurant that's supposed to be fixed regularly, but it was not. It also needed some love. So they have fixed that and maintained that. There was also a water valve that needs to be inspected regularly, from my understanding. That was not done. And they are on that. There was the dumpster here in the lodge. There was a valve or a backflow
It's a fire
Fire
suppression.
line that was not being kept up to fire code. So it was a fire hazard. So we are now inspecting that next week. And also there is a member of the BHP crew who is obtaining their backflow regulator certificate. And that will also, so we can go around and inspect things. And that will also in turn save taco owners quite a bit of money as well. So they're doing a lot of things in-house that will in turn save our owners quite a bit of money. So does anyone have any questions or anything on that? Yes.
Will the charges to the owner be the same as what maintenance was previously charging to the owner on the hourly rate?
Yes.
Yes.
You said that they've established a relationship with Glacier Club. In what ways does taco maintenance have to collaborate with Glacier?
There's actually quite a bit, actually. We work hand in hand with them in a lot of ways, and we're actually wanting to get, we always want a working relationship with Glacier. We work a lot with them. From just landscaping out in the field. We always want to be able to lend them a hand whenever we can, and vice versa. So I don't know, Gary, do you want to add? something
One
that-
of the things that primarily we're gonna have to work with them on is the fire mitigation, because there's a lot of places, and I live on the west side of Gamble Oak, and this is a good example. There are a lot of places where there are trees that we think are actually on Glacier Club land, but they impact the buildings, the Tamron buildings on that side of Gamble Oak. So we have to work with them in terms of trimming those trees and seeing what sort of steps need to be taken with fire mitigation. We also want to cut out some of the stuff some of the low growth that's there, but we have to work with them. It's their property. So that's one of the primary places. Also, when and this happens occasionally when Glacier Club has a water problem, we have to wind up working with them to cooperate in how to mitigate whatever water problem is, a line break or something like that. And that happens.
Just happened
Once-
last week.
It happens once a year.
Last week, we had a plumbing issue, and there was question on if that line was actually on Tamron property or Glacier's property. So things like that happen quite a bit.
And at the next landscape committee meeting, Eric Evans, who is now the assistant supervisor over at Glacier Club, he's going to be coming in and giving a presentation on turf, on what turf grows best here, both in sun and shade. He was the superintendent when I first came here. He left around right after Glacier Club came. He was down at Dalton Ranch for a year. Then he was gone. He just came back. So he's back on with Glacier Club. We're going to be working with him as far as getting some good ideas on what kind of grass grows best under different conditions here. So we do work with them. It's a long-winded way of saying we do work with them.
Is the land between the mine shaft and Pine Cone ours or theirs, or half and half?
There's a property line, I don't know exactly where it is. Generally speaking, our land, our property extends from 5 to 15 feet beyond the back decks of the condominiums. Or in that particular case in Pinecone, that's the front deck, actually. So exactly where the property line is, I don't know. There is a website, La Plata County website, where you can actually see those lines. And but I can't guarantee exactly how accurate to the foot those are.
So that's someplace we'd have to work with them as far as fire mitigation.
Sure. Yeah,
In the winter, we talk with them all the time because of snow removal.
sure.
That's something else that we work with them constantly on. To try to get the roads plowed, things like that happens all the time. Rick, back to you.
Okay, one of the things that I wanted to touch on too was they're putting a person through the backflow preventer training. Dave Dunn was on property and had inspected that and seen that it had not been done. Mark Schmidt, when he was here, went through the training and was certified to do it and had been doing it for us. It is something that is supposed to be done yearly. And Dave checked it and found that it had not been done since he left. So that was one of the things we found that had not been completed and we needed to get a control on. So BHP is putting a person through there to do that, and the cost of the certification pays for itself in 2 years. Because the contracting someone to come check it is very costly. So anyway, I hope that you guys will look and see. We have some good things going, and results so far from the owners as far as services has been very positive. I know one thing that they've done is they've been following up with people, making a call, make sure they were satisfied with the work that was done and professionalism of the person. So, okay, moving on to landscape committee. What we wanted to do, and I'd been requested, is formally announce support by the board for the reestablishment of the landscape committee. I'm not even going to try and name everybody. Everybody's name is on the website if you want to go look under the committee, headed up by Mark Paliza. And they have done a lot of work so far, and we want to thank them. And we've got some more things going. We've got things going on around the property. We've started the remodel up in High Point. There's some things that look very good. I've had some people asking about the various types of trees and plants and given some comments, and we hope to have a good finished product for everybody. Greg, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
You know, just a couple of things. That is a very committed, professional, efficient committee, organized. And Mark's here. I was going to have Mark say just a couple of words and maybe introduce some of the folks on the committee, because I want them to be recognized. Mark, you got a couple minutes?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. First, I just wanted to thank the board for recognizing this committee and supporting this committee. Particularly, I'd like to thank Rick and Greg. They've been incredibly accessible and helpful in getting this ball rolling. It would never have happened without their support and taking the time to listen to folks like me. I wanted to thank staff also for their help, and Gary has kept the committee connected. We've had a number of meetings remotely over the springtime, and Gary has been instrumental in keeping us going, and he's also been instrumental in starting our website work where the committee is going to stay in communication with the membership of owners. We have Pat Benton here today, we have Trish Layfield, and we have Rich Wiltz. They're committee members. We have Lynette Thibodeau and Dottie Alexander. She is not here, but they're here in spirit. The committee will meet the first Tuesday of every month at 10 o'clock. Homeowners are invited and they're encouraged. We look at the grounds is probably the most common of the common elements. So it's important for homeowners to come and have their voices heard. One of the things that we'll be dealing with is changing in just the structure of the staffing. We've talked about now that we have a contractor rather than full-time staff. And we'll deal with that. The good news is what we vetted since last September is a plan and a schedule. It's written down, it's on paper, it's posted on the website if you'd like to go see that plan. So now, no matter who's doing the execution, it's a matter of handing the paper and saying, this is the plan that's been vetted by the committee. Fortunately, we did that work. We have a number of things planned as sort of high-level topics throughout the summer. Last month, and we've already talked about this today, we dealt with tree trimming and fire protection. What we've learned is we have a lot to learn. It's a complicated issue, and it's an issue that we need help from all the homeowners because it's this delicate balance of what do we trim away versus what we leave behind, because everyone wants to keep the natural beauty of our area. We don't want a bunch of popsicles out there that look like trees, yet we know we've got a problem. And just read the news last week, how fast that fire blew up south of town. It's just, it's a powder keg out there. So we know we have a problem. We need to figure out how we're going to deal with that problem. As Gary mentioned, we have grass and weeds. This coming meeting in first Tuesday in June. We have the fellow from Glacier who is going to be helping us with grass. We have Brian with La Plata who's going to come and talk with us about weeds. We've heard a lot of complaints that the weed spray we use is pretty rank stuff. We're going to try to mitigate that. In July, we are going to circle back to fire protection. Don't know the answers. Again, we need to hear from the homeowners what their interests are. I've started communications with Glacier. Glacier and Rockwood have a long-term plan in progress. I'm very interested to see how we might fit in with that plan. But what Glacier does do, and we have catch-up to do, as Gary had mentioned, is working with the what they call ladder fuels, what I used to call as the understory. It's the stuff that just catches fire first and then just takes over very fast. In August, we have Derek coming in from Plata County. He's going to talk to us about sustainable landscaping. In September, we're going to recircle back with lessons learned that we can present to the board in November. So that's just the general plan of the season, and we encourage everyone to participate.
Thanks, Mark. And while it's each committee member is, I mean, they're on it. It's really, it's exciting. And also want to give a shout out to Mark. The guy drove 13 hours. He comes and picks me up so we can drive the property. I could have just sat on the balcony and drank a beer, but no. Yeah, that just gives you an idea of how committed they are. And their ideas and organization is very impressive. So it's kind of exciting.
I do have a question, Mark, and maybe this has been talked about, and Trish and Lynette, and all of you on the committee, thank you. Have we talked, obviously there's a lot to do, we know that. Have we talked about perhaps doing, they always do the Adopt a Project, maybe there's people in Tamara, I'm one of them, and I'll get out there, I'll dig, I'll do whatever you want me to do.
We're all over
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
We're all over that. That's
If
my,
you want to adopt a flower pot, that's a starting point.
there you go. Mhm.
Great question. Though, don't we?
I was out sweeping my sidewalk yesterday.
Yes, you're
Got
hired.
it all done.
You're hired. You ready?
Got
it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
And just so that everybody knows, if you want to see what the landscape committee is up to. If you go to the news and events page of the website, the first notice here, click here for information and updates from the Tamaron Landscape Committee. That will go to that page. Also, if you go to the committee's page, scroll down, this link right here will go to that same page. So there's a couple of different ways to get to that page. I'm going to update this with some photographs, with what other pieces of information the landscape committee can send me, and you can see what's happening in the High Point project in particular.
And I just wanted to also follow up. I hadn't said anything to Mark yet, but Gary and Elisa and I have been meeting, and we do have some plans for Gamble Oak. The entire property, both east and west sides, in the center and south side. So we're still working on that, and Mark and I will talk about that once I get back down there. So, and one thing I wanted to say, you know I haven't been the smoothest this morning. I would feel more comfortable if I were there, but I'm here in Denver for my grandson's birthday, and that's why I'm not there in person. So if you guys will bear with me, I'd like to be there in person, but anyway, I did see there was a chat. Dan Noonan had said that he and Mark are working with Glacier as far as the wildfire mitigation and things of that nature. And he said that they've been very well received by Glacier, and they feel like they're opening a line of communication that's very good between Taco and Glacier.
Great.
So anything else on landscape?
Yes, Rick.
Yes.
And perhaps Greg would be the appropriate person to make such a motion, but it would seem to me that now that we've seen the membership of the committee, I'm not sure we have, up to this point, I'm not sure the board has taken an official action to approve the membership of the committee, which is really the protocol that we should be following. So if that
Okay.
has not happened, perhaps Greg would make that motion.
So I make that motion.
I second.
Is that Kathy?
Yes. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I vote aye for Stacy. Any opposed? Any further discussion? Okay, motion passes. Okay, well then the next thing we'll move on to rules and regulations. One of the first things that we had a request about was people speeding on property. Obviously, we don't own any of the roads. Those are owned by Glacier. I don't believe there's any speed limit signs going down towards Pinecone or Gamble Oak. I know there are going towards High Point, which it's a posted speed limit of 20 once you get past Glacier Drive down there to the club. But people have had some concerns as far as speeding, and we would just ask everybody to please be careful and be conscious of people walking. You know, we see a lot of people walking. I know I did watch an owner in Gamble Oak who I was coming around the corner by the mine shaft, and the owner turned without even putting their brakes on. And I went ahead and drove 20, and that owner was down in Gamble Oak before I got about 2/3 of the way down. So, you know, that was one of us. So we just need to be careful about stuff like that. You know, a possible alternative would be speed bumps, but I don't think there's any of us that really want one of those. So we just need to be careful about that. One of the other things was in regards to parking. Is there anyone that has considered any changes in our parking policy, such as, currently we have one vehicle per licensed driver. Is there anyone who has any thoughts about changing that, or do we feel like it's a good policy we should maintain? Any thoughts about that?
Rick, this is Jerry. Yeah, I think, limiting the number of vehicles makes a lot of sense, because especially at certain times of the year, we have problems with having enough parking spaces for everybody. So my first thought on that is that that we should keep it one vehicle per owner per unit, whatever that seems to make sense to me. But I'm open to other opinions and discussion.
Wait, Jerry, can I just clarify? So you said one car per owner per unit, but the policy is one per licensed driver of the unit,
Maximum two.
maximum of two.
Yeah, I mean, I can see, when that policy was established, people didn't have extra vehicles as much. And I just didn't know if anybody had any differences on that. The outlying areas, it's not as a problem as much as what is at the lodge, but at the lodge, it's a huge problem. And we just need to really watch that.
Well, I think
So-
we should be considerate and respectful. If you have two vehicles, and obviously we've got a lot of older folks that live up here too, so don't put both of your vehicles up front if you know someone else needs to park, because I've seen owners that have to park way back in Pinecone because all the other were full. So I think it's just a matter of being considerate of your neighbors. If you do have your two vehicles, then try to separate them so they're not together, so others do have the opportunity to park closer to the unit.
Yeah, and along those lines, at the lodge and, some there in Pinecone, don't, be considerate of your neighbors. I know there's some families that will have two vehicles and they'll have one under a covered spot. And if they want to drive one vehicle, they'll pull the one out and put their other one immediately in. So just be courteous to your neighbors. So I guess the general feeling there is we'll just leave the policy as it is pertaining to number of vehicles. Another one regarding parking that I think yes.
Let him go ahead. Maybe he's gonna cover that. Go ahead. I'll ask a question if you don't cover it.
No, go ahead.
'Cause
I was moving on.
Oh, okay. We also have an issue of people storing their cars here of longer than 30 days. I've seen numerous cars have been sitting there for longer than 30 days. And if I notice that, I'll let staff know. But there's a lot of people, and I assume that there's a lot of people probably have read the CCNRs and realize that that's a rule. And that also affects the number of parking spaces if people leave their car, and then go back to Texas or where they're at. And that affects us also. So we need to ensure that everybody's aware of that rule.
Yeah, and as we're notified of situations where people believe a car is not moved, then we address those issues. I I know, Brian, that there's one you brought to my attention and you can see that it's now been moved.
Yes, it is.
So-
Thank you.
Yeah, so anyway, we addressed those issues. I did see a chat saying from one of the owners down in Gamble Oak saying that, they believe most of the speeding comes from renters and not just homeowners, but the majority of it's from renters and, might be something where, we can have the people serve security desk, just remind people when they check in to, that we have a lot of, walkers, hikers, and to be careful when they're driving on property.
You can do that.
Yeah, don't we have like a FAQ sheet or
We do,
something? We
yeah.
just add that on there in bold letters,
Yeah.
because we had one in Pinecone yesterday that almost took out Troy Thibodeau. I mean, he jumped out of the way, so, and it's a renter that's up in Pinecone.
Rick, before Tim left, he had told me that the maintenance staff had identified at least 6 units that had over the limit of cars. I don't know which ones. I only know of one that's here in the lodge, but he said that they're around the property and that because they're out and about, they've noticed those things. And he said that he had like 6. I don't know if he shared that with everybody before he left or anybody.
Not to my knowledge. So. Okay, the next thing I want to, discuss.
Question here, one more question, sorry, Rick, sorry. Is there,
Go ahead.
is there an enforcement procedure in CCNRs that's spelled out to address that? In other words, when it's noticed, you get noted this time, then you get noted again, then you get fined, then you get towed. Is there something specific to deal with that problem in the CCNR?
It would be the same as everything else. I mean, is there one for that specific item? No. But it would be the same as any other infraction.
Well, Rick, now I'm not sure what the question was, but there is a specific, I think it's a bylaw, not a DCCR thing, but Kathy mentioned it. That is to say, 1 per licensed driver with a limit of 2, if it's the parking issue you're talking about. Obviously, we really don't have any authority to enforce speeding regulations on roads that don't belong to us. So there'd be nothing in our documents that address speed.
The question, as I understood it, was, is there a specific enforcement mechanism attached to the ownership of vehicles? And what I was saying was, I didn't believe so. It would be the same as any other.
Right. It would simply be a notification and fine process if
Right.
such violations were discovered.
Right.
That's all spelled out in the rules and regs. It's not in the DCCNRs and it's not in the
Somewhere
bylaws.
in the
It's in the rules and
documents.
regs. And there's a schedule of fines at the bottom of the rules and regs, but there's a whole section on parking.
All it needs is somebody to enforce it, right?
Yeah, and the problem, everybody's got to understand the problem. We don't have a police force that goes around and polices dogs or parking or anything like that. We deal with those things when it gets reported to us. And you know, that's going to be, as it is, that's going to be like a 1 in 50 happenstance. It just doesn't happen that often. When it does, we deal with it.
I had one other question regarding the speeding. Considering what people have said and where it happens, wouldn't it be a good idea to put up a speed limit sign on the road down to Gamble Oak, like on to High Point? That have some impact.
So that's Glacier's
Short of-
roads, right?
Short of, well, it's another opportunity to cooperate with Glacier.
Mhm.
Short of having put in speed bumps.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have, I'm not opposed to, us asking, I mean, they might say it's an eyesore, but it's a safety feature. But, definitely something that we could,
And if we have the same people in violation, we need to let Glacier Club know that as well. When Bob Smith drives, 80 miles an hour through here, we need to do something about that. So I think contacting Glacier Club with that information would be one possible step. The other issue is that the streets, as we've mentioned, don't belong. And when you get into private areas and private streets, and it's a whole different set of issues. So my recommendation would be to contact Glacier Club if it's something that you see repeatedly.
That's something that we can definitely work on.
Dan just volunteered.
Dan can. That's it. Okay. Okay, absolutely.
Going back to
Okay.
the parking here, it does say in the last paragraph of the parking regulations, it does say that the cars may be towed at the owner's expense.
Has the board ever considered issuing parking permits during part of the time? Like you get so many permits per unit and either the owner has them or they're handed out at the front desk and then you just turn it over to a towing company. That's how it's done in condos in big cities. I don't know if anyone up at Purgatory does any kind of patrolling of parking lots with towing companies.
I don't know if, we do have a section in there about hang tags and we considered, I think this started a year ago, having hang tags for cars that are parking. The problem that we have that is different from condominium in a big city is we have owners who are here, who live here full time.
Right.
We have owners who come here for 4 months in the summer. And then we have long-term renters and we have short-term guests. We've got a whole basket full of different kinds of people who are here, and trying to regulate parking with a policy that's going to cover everybody is extremely difficult. And plus, add to that the fact that we've talked about this before, we have over 50 units that change hands every year now. We had what, 55 sales last year. We've had over 50 for the last 4 years. Trying to get everybody on board and trying to get everybody registered in that regard is very difficult. We have owners who refuse to give us their license numbers. They will not give us car information. I'm an owner, I can park wherever I want. Well, yeah, that's true. All we want is the information so that if there's a problem, we can get in touch with you. We know whose car it is. Even that part is very difficult. So we'd love to come up with a good policy that'll cover everybody. If anybody has any really good ideas, let us know. I'm sorry. It's just the way that it is.
Okay, moving on, and the next thing I wanted to cover will address one of the questions on the chat. As far as the oversized parking, right now, we currently have language in there that says we charge $10 a day for oversized parking, which includes owners. I think that we need to strike that language. I think we need to remove that. I don't think that we should be charging owners to use the oversized parking. I do agree with limiting it to 10 days, but I'm not in favor of charging owners for it. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
How many owners actually used it last year? Do you know?
Quite a few. It gets used quite a bit.
I mean, there's a couple of things that we implemented when Tim was here that as we go along, I'd like to kind of roll back, and this is one of them.
And Rick, the question that was asked in the chat is if they still have 48 hours to use the oversized parking space. Actually, they have 48 hours to use the space in front of their unit to load. If they're actively loading and unloading, they can do that in front of their unit. If they're not loading and unloading, we ask that they do move it to the oversized parking space.
Does that include the lodge?
there are no oversized parking spaces here, and you can't drive up to a front door here.
So, okay, well, I make a motion that we strike the language from the rules and regulations regarding the charging of owners for use of the oversized parking.
Rick, the problem with that is that owners need to be notified in advance.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
sorry, but we really can't change the rules without notifying the owners that we're going to change the rules.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
okay, well, I just want to get that process started then. I think that I don't think we should be doing it anymore, so, okay, I'll get with you, John, and we'll do exactly what we need to do to get that started. And then we'll get to the point where we take a vote, and if people don't agree, then we'll go there, but anyway, those are my feelings on that. Okay, then, the next thing that, was brought to our attention was, we know of a unit, I believe in Gamble Oak, where, a loft space was added. And what it appears is it was added as a storage space. And so those are one set of building codes by the city and county. And the owner is now using it as a bedroom. And I've heard that there's also a warning on the site where the unit's advertised that says steep stairs. So the loft does not conform to building codes, but yet they're trying to rent it out that way. So we'd had a request that anytime there's a loft that's added, it has to meet building codes for living space. And we've been asked to add that to our contractor policy. And then also along those lines, making sure that whenever there's work being done, that they're not altering the fire suppression system. We had one where a contractor disabled the fire suppression system and notification. And then also the phone lines. So that would be the same thing where we'll have to notify the owners that we want to make those changes. And I think these are good requests, because we definitely want to make sure that any of our units are in conformity with local policies. And then as far as the fire suppression system, that kind of speaks for itself. And phone lines, we discussed that in past meetings where liability issues, we feel like we need to have a phone line in every unit for an emergency. So we'll address that the same as the parking. Ron, was there anything else that you'd heard about us regarding rules and regulations?
I think that's it.
Okay. Okay, then, moving on, unfinished business. What I wanted to do there was just publicly announce, and then also for the board. We were requested by Tim before. And what we did was we formed a committee and we did an exploratory committee to find out what the cost and what all would be involved in a project to replace the drain pipes in the lodge. And we did allocate some money. We paid some last year. We allocated some this year to find out what all would be involved, what the cost would be. And what we found out was the cost would be prohibitive at this time based on the repairs that we were having. The numbers we were seeing would have been in the upper seven figures. And current economic conditions with everything involved, it just wasn't justified for the amount of repairs we were having. The amount that we had in 2021 was a little under 18,000. So going up into many millions of dollars didn't justify that. So the a project was officially halted and it is no longer being explored. So that is completely done. If anyone has any questions, they're more than welcome to contact me. I know that rumors had affected the cost on a couple of sales, and that's all they were, was rumors. There had been nothing that was officially done other than exploring what the cost would be. So anyway, I wanted to go ahead and put that to bed. There will not be any pipe replacement project in the lodge at this time. So
There's
do
a
you
question.
guys want,
Hang on, Rick. There's a question.
okay.
Why was the issue originally looked into? What was the problem?
That
you-
was,
Sorry, Rick. Can you just tell us what your name and your unit?
Oh, I'm Judy Johnson, Unit 404 in the lodge.
Okay, thank you.
that was one of the things that Tim had suggested. We've been having some issues with the pipes. The original construction of the property, they put in cast iron pipes that were supposed to last 100 years. The nature of the usage, some of them were starting to fail a little bit earlier. So Tim had gone to Eric, and Eric had also discussed it with Dave Dunn. And so we thought we would explore just to see what, because we had no idea. And there were several options that we had. And none of them were really feasible other than a full replacement of the building. And it just, for the amount of repairs we were having, the replacement just doesn't make sense at this time. So it was something brought to the board by our former maintenance manager.
So Rick, will we just continue to do what we were doing before and replace as needed?
That is correct. One thing I did want to mention too, back under the property report that I had forgotten. While BHP is in place, Dave Dunn has agreed to oversee any remodel projects. So we're contracting with him to take care of that, so that BHP, while they do some remodels, they are not overseeing anyone else's work. It is being done by a separate party. So there would be no conflict of interest there. And also gets Dave back on property to help out and give suggestions too. And Dave is wholeheartedly working with BHP to help teach him some of the little intricacies of our property.
All right, wait, there's a question in the room. And I should have had you identify yourself before. I'm so sorry.
I live in 4042.
Okay.
But I wondered if when this, I want to go back to the plumbing project for just a second. I wondered if when the replacement was suggested, was there any long-term consequence identified that could not be addressed by the current maintenance, the current replacement strategy? In other words, if we just keep fixing it as it goes along, is that going to be good enough to avoid any long-term impact that might have been identified, or do we need something more, or do we need something more than just replacing as it comes up?
From the testing that we got back, obviously the company that did the testing wanted to do the work and get the replacement. They said that our pipes were, I guess you'd say, I'm trying to think of the word. They're where they should be. We're not going to have immediate failures on a large scale basis. In fact, the water lines were actually better than what they expected. The water lines had, they said, another 20 to 30 years of life in those. So is there any immediate possibility of catastrophic failure? No. No, it just, we didn't feel like if we're spending somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 to 20,000 a year in repairs, does that justify, upper seven figures in repairs and replacement? So we just didn't feel like that it does.
Rick, can I throw something else in?
Sure.
About 3 years ago, this first came up that I remember. I've been on the job for 10 years. This came up about 3 years ago because that particular year, I think it was 3 years ago, we spent a fair amount of money. I'll bet it was between 25 and 30, but I don't have those figures in front of me. Last year we spent, as Rick said, under 18,000, was 17 something. This year, I don't think that we've spent a penny yet on pipe repair. It's the kind of thing that pops up here and there. But as Rick said, we don't have any indication that there's going to be any kind of catastrophic failure of, building wide. We're probably better off in terms of finances of fixing these things as they come up and fixing them in a way that is going to serve us long term.
But the more we fix, the less it's gonna break.
That's
So,
right.
I mean, we've done a lot of work, so do we know how much has been replaced and what percentage?
I would say no, we don't know. It could be researched and found out, but it'll take,
Eventually, it'll be all replaced.
eventually it'll be all replaced.
Right, okay, correct, right.
But we just make smaller payments to get it done.
Yeah.
And we know with mechanical stuff, eventually there's going to be a failure, but we're 60 years into 100-year pipes, so does it make sense at this point? I personally don't think it does. And we're not, again, the testing we did does not indicate we're on the verge of any type of catastrophic failure. So we we just decided that we'll just discontinue the exploration at this time. So, do you guys, really, the only thing left is, John's part. Do you guys want to take a break for a few minutes or just keep going?
Rick, I don't anticipate a long period of time on this unless board members don't, I think they've seen, or I've tried to make them aware of these proposed schedules. I really think this could be taken care of in a relatively short time unless there are problems or questions.
Okay, I just wanted to give you guys the opportunity. I'm good with going on.
Well,
Okay.
if that's okay. And to the fellow board members, I'm not really thinking this requires a motion, but I wanted to, because this happens every year, we have a schedule for the election. We have a schedule for the annual meeting week. So I think the annual meeting week schedule is up now. Thank you, Gary. The only thing that I thought, two things about this annual meeting week schedule that are slightly different. Last year, we talked about how many new owners just were not aware of the reception, and we've seen it dwindling. And of course, we've had COVID to deal with and all that, but the idea was that rather than bury the notice of the reception in the general information packet, that we send a save the date card to owners, making them aware of the time and date of the reception. And it doesn't seem like a real controversial thing to me. And so I think working with Gary, we should proceed to send out that save the date card unless anybody sees a problem.
I think it's a good idea.
Well, if there are no objections, we'll kind of go along that line. The other thing that you might notice is that there is no Q&A list this year. I've not included a Q&A with candidates. Now, we can certainly be done, but one wonders if virtually everyone is voting by mail or online, what is the point of having a Q&A one day before the owners meeting? So again, if there's a strong feeling that we should have such a thing, it can certainly be included. But my feeling is that it's kind of a meaningless exercise. Any comments?
I agree with that.
We have
Question.
one.
Do you have a deadline for when, if someone wants to run to the board, they have to give their name to the board? Then if you're gonna have,
That'll be coming up.
if you have a Q&A, why don't you have it associated with that deadline?
Did you hear that? John?
Not really.
So Diana is in unit 848. And her question is if we have a deadline for the candidates submitting their resumes, et cetera, and their willingness to run for the board, could we not do a Q&A at that date?
Well, you could certainly do it at another time. Yeah, there will be a deadline for owners to indicate their interest. I suppose that such a Q&A could be scheduled, I guess, remotely. I don't think that, I'm not sure that an in-person Q&A in the middle of June, I don't know. I mean, it's whatever the board wants.
I'm not opposed to having, I think a Q&A is nice for people get to know, but it needs to be done at the right time, which we learned, the day before was not the right time. But I do think it's nice to ask questions of the candidates prior, just reviewing their resume and, just asking specific questions. When I've run for my other boards, that's exactly what happened.
I agree also, John. I think it would be nice to do. Perhaps we could try it once and see how it works out or doesn't work out.
Well, like I said, I'm just suggesting some things here. This is not, these things are not really my decision as such. And if it is the consensus of the board that there should be such a thing, I can certainly include it.
Hey, John, I think maybe if we did something around the date suggested with Zoom and how everything has changed, even if it's just, we take a couple shots at it. So there could be for folks that are willing to run, there's a Q&A and we schedule certain times and we keep it within a boundary of certain times, or, mix it up, add times if we need to. But I think that would be helpful. I think that would do it well in advance. And we'll see how it goes.
Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll after June 10th, once we have we know who is running, then I'll schedule something at a fairly early date in the process. And again, I would assume that it would have to, it could be, it could certainly be done in person, but who knows whether even those candidates will be on property. So I think it has to be done as an online, a Zoom type Q&A.
Well, thanks for considering doing all the work, John. Appreciate that.
No problem. I guess actually, as I look at the schedule now, it has to be done shortly after July 1.
Yeah, I do think it may be helpful too if we hold those, Q&As, is that we have specific questions that will be asked.
Same questions for.
Same questions for each person, so that you're not getting into, more of a, just, a long lengthy discussion versus just asking the specific questions. And again, with previous experience and on the boards that I'm on, in addition to this, that's what's happened.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the protocol, when we did this in person the day before the annual meeting, people just asked questions.
Yeah, we can do that, and we can discuss how we want to set the format and all that. So main thing would be that we'll go ahead and plan on doing something like that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the second week of July after the 4th. Either
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Another board member may have to take the lead on that, depending on
Yeah.
what date is chosen. I have some obligations around that time, right after the 1st of July. So I may be calling upon one of my capable board colleagues to take the lead.
And we can do that whenever we decide when we're going to do it, we can take care of that.
I'm super excited about this. As you see, my clothes, no logo, anything like that. Super.
Happened.
So, okay. So
Okay, shall
we'll
we
just,
proceed?
Yeah.
Another thing that I think would be worth considering is a little bit of a change in how we are encouraging and enabling owners to vote. Electronic voting has become, we've used it now a couple of times, and it appears to be overwhelmingly preferred by owners. And so we obviously need to continue to offer it. The question is, do we continue to send paper ballots to everyone, regardless of whether they use them or not? Any thoughts on, could we possibly go to a different system where people who want to vote by paper can make it known and we would send them a paper ballot, whereas the standard might become electronic voting? And I'm open to, again, this is not my decision. This is a board decision.
Right. And John, sorry, Jerry. And again, I keep referring back to the other boards that I'm on, but that's exactly how we do it. It's electronic only. There's no paper voting.
Any other board members have any thoughts?
Yeah, John, this is Jerry. I have a little bit of a concern that some owners will not do the electronic voting and are expecting they will not know that they will have to request a paper ballot if that's what their preference is. They simply just won't be paying enough attention to know what their options are and what they need to do if they need a paper ballot. That's my only concern.
Yeah, I'm kind of envisioning that we would have Gary send out a message concerning the balloting and say that we will vote electronically unless a owner requests a paper ballot, and then at that point, we can have it sent out to them.
Yeah, I mean, that would be possible, Rick. Again, I think Jerry's concern is that
That they won't understand they need to
won't get the
request.
message, and then they won't ever see a paper ballot because they didn't realize they had to request one.
Sure, and some people just don't pay attention to their emails too.
Yeah, yeah. On the last ballot that we had there for the capital improvement fund, I think it was something like 81.6% of the people voted electronically. So roughly 80-20 of the ballots were electronic.
John, can I ask what is the cost of printing and distributing the paper ballots? If you're sending out a packet, an information packet anyway, what is the incremental cost in including the ballot?
Gary might have more specific information about what the mailing costs are for the packet itself. And then, of course, each packet under the current system has a self-addressed stamped envelope for the return of the ballot. And that's where most of the cost is. Is that right, Gary?
That's correct. If we've got 378 units, 53 cents each just for a return envelope. Do the math. You know, you're looking at $200 in postage just for the return envelopes. Add to that the added cost for the mailing itself because of added weight. If you've got 2 or 3 or 4 ballots that you have to put in, that means 2 or 3 or 4 return envelopes as well. That increases the postage of the whole packet going out. Plus, and this is a selfish part, it's selfish on my part, it increases the time and effort it takes to put the whole packet together. And I can send out an email once a day for a month and remind people that they can vote electronically. And put it on the website. That's my plug for the website again. I understand, Jerry, your concern, and I don't want to sound harsh about this, but there's so much hand-holding you can do or surrounding something like this that after a while, people just have to learn that, okay, yeah, I could have voted electronically.
It could be the way to tackle that is when you send out the packet, on the very front of the packet, it said you put a message in there that there is no mail-in voting and that it's electronic voting only, which then people are reading the packet, so they can't miss it if they don't read their email. That's my thought. And that's what we did with our nursing organizations.
The other thing we might do, and Elisa, is Elisa still here?
I'm here.
Yeah, how many people in our most recent vote concerning the amending the DCCRs about the capital fund, how many paper votes did we get?
Oh, paper votes. Okay. I think you had,
I do.
you have that page.
Let me look really quick.
Around 58.
Yeah, that's right.
And do we know who those people were?
That
Yeah.
we do, yes.
Yeah, I know that information.
So that's another thought, Jerry, is that the people who voted by paper this time could be specifically notified.
Sure.
And it would almost be like in public elections, if you put your name on the early voting list, you have an option to make that a permanent, at least in Arizona. I can say, I want an early ballot every time there's an election. And maybe we could have a list of paper voters, so to speak. And unless you take yourself off that list, then you'll get a paper ballot.
It's kind of like the electronic statements. Some people get them by email, some people get a paper statement.
Right. So again, perhaps we're being too concerned about a $200 or $300 expense. But on the other hand, why spend that money if 80% of our people are going to vote electronically anyway? Why spend all the money sending them paper ballots and stamps? Just a thought.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I am all for electronic voting. That's how I've voted, and I will continue to do that. I just want to make sure that all owners really do have an opportunity to vote.
And I'm with Jerry. I think there's going to be a certain percentage that don't feel comfortable voting electronically. I think there's some that, some of them that are getting up in their 80s and stuff like that are not as comfortable, and I think the list of those who would like a paper ballot is probably a good idea.
Well, again, this really isn't Gary's decision or my decision or Rick's decision. But if this is the way the board, and again, I don't think it requires an official board action because people are going to get their ballots, quote unquote. I mean, that's not the issue. They're going to get an opportunity, but it's the methodology. It's a methodology question. And if the board is comfortable moving toward something that we've discussed here, that would mean, of course, that the people who have most recently exercised their voting privilege by paper would have the opportunity to do that again. And everybody would be notified that if they wish to do that, they may. But otherwise, we would expect, as the trend seems to be happening, we would expect that the vast majority of people will be using electronic voting.
I think we should move that way. I think initially this year might be slightly more work for Gary, but in subsequent years, it'll take work off of him.
Guys, I'm joining late, but have you guys just talked about sending out an opt-out kind of email?
Or more of an opt-in for a paper ballot.
Or an opt-in? Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to opt out of anything paper going forward, as you all know.
Well, Jerry, I guess you're the only person who has voiced some hesitation. How would you feel about the idea that the people who recently voted by paper would be specifically contacted to see if they want to continue that?
I'd be fine with that. And I think, giving everybody an opportunity to opt in for a paper ballot would be fine with me as well.
Yeah. And so that would require, since Gary has a key role in making all this happen, I think Gary would then be the custodian of the paper ballot list.
Hey, John, maybe this too is just kind of that transitional year, because I think Jerry does have a good point. There are some folks that, we don't want to have anybody left out. And just as a side, like when I get the emails or whatever, because it's a company computer, it's blocked. So, because we had the paper one, I just voted paper. Believe me, I can fix that. But I'm sure there's some other, circumstances. So maybe it's just a transitional year. Everybody gets educated this year. We rock and roll electronic next year.
I'm not sure what you're suggesting, Greg.
I'm not either. Where we have you.
I think he's pretty much saying he's good with what we've been talking about.
All right. Well, if unless I hear significant opposition to the idea. I'd like to work with Gary to come up with this situation where most people we expect and will expect them to vote electronically, but we will have a system that will make sure that people that are not comfortable with that continue to get their paper ballots.
Yeah, I think we need to do that, especially we still would allow someone to vote on paper the day of. We,
Oh, and that, well, that's in the DCCRs.
yeah.
So That has not changed.
Yeah.
But that's usually less than 10 people.
Yeah. So,
Okay, if I might say one more thing or ask one more thing.
certainly.
All of you have had an opportunity to look at some materials that, with a great deal of help from other people, I put together for the idea of having some sort of orientation for people who say that they are interested in being candidates for a board position. And I was proposing to do a pilot program this summer. It would probably been better if it had already been done in May, and maybe in the future we could move it forward in the calendar. But this year, because of the timing, it seems like it would have to be done sometime in July. But to take 4 consecutive Thursday evenings in July and offer what I've called the Board Candidate Academy to those people that are interested in running for the board, and just as a pilot, and then evaluate it and find out if it's even worth doing in the long term. And again, it's at the board's pleasure. If somebody wants to make a motion, that's fine. If somebody just wants to say, hey, give it a shot, that's fine too.
Definitely, John, I thought that was excellent. I'm sure other folks did as well. So whether we need to make a motion, give it a shot, whatever, I think that's a great idea, and it's extremely thorough and good.
Yeah, I don't know that we need to take formal action, but I wholeheartedly support it. There's a lot of great information, and even people that just want to learn about Tamarron, the history, everything. It's an outstanding program as far as I'm concerned. And then the 4th section, which really deals with Tamarron Glacier relations. I think that's very important too.
Anybody else have any thoughts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
I may not be available one or more of those nights. I don't know yet, but I'm not sure of my availability yet.
Well, that's the other thing. I would encourage owners to look that material over, or board members to look that material over. And if there are particular sections, units of the class, let's say, that you would like to say, for instance, sit on a panel and make comments or be willing to ask questions, I would really welcome that. In fact, I'd like 2 or 3 board members at each of them. I'm willing to take the moderator role. I would certainly work with Jerry on the water. That would be nice if you could be there. And then even former board member Tibbetts might be helpful on a couple of occasions, but I would really encourage board members to be willing to participate and support.
I will be there for all of them, John.
Very well, good.
John, I'll do that too. And I think July I'll be here. I might even be able to make some of those in person. So if that's an option, I'm in.
Yeah, and I'll be here for some of them in person, but I would also be on Zoom for any others where I was. I have a one trip that might happen to overlap.
All right,
I know state.
We have one question in the room.
Is that information / training session available to all homeowners or just homeowners who have declared for the board?
Is this going to be available All homeowners or just homeowners interested in running for the board?
Well, the thought here was that it would be that people who were interested in running for the board would be invited. It wouldn't be a requirement. I really see no problem with then the general ownership participating. I mean, if there were too many, that might be a struggle, but as long as it's not an overwhelming number, I wouldn't see why we couldn't open it up.
Yeah, you could even do a sign, like limit it to a number of people that sign up if we started to get a lot of requests.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point here was really to direct this at people interested in running for the board because of, I've felt over the years that sometimes people run for the board for all the right reasons. And then once they get on the board, they say, oh, wow, I didn't know that. And so.
And going to Diana's point, I think that, a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. So if you sit in the academy and then you think, oh, that makes more sense. Yeah, sure. Then I really would be interested, but you may not be interested at that point in time.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if that seems to be a positive thing to do, again, I think Kathy makes a good point. I don't think it would happen, but if like 50 people wanted to, that would be very difficult to manage. So maybe we ought to find out how many people are running for the board, how many of them want to avail themselves of the opportunity, and then maybe open up 10 or 12 extra slots or something if to keep it manageable.
Right.
Does that all sound okay to people?
Sounds good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go forward with it and again, encourage any and all of you as board members to participate in some way, shape or form. I would really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
wholeheartedly support it. And from everything that I've heard from everybody, I think the rest of the board does too. Looking at the information, it's excellent information and I want to thank you, John, Jerry, Joe,
Eric,
everybody that helped you put it together. It's great information.
thank you.
Okay, well, if that's that, there was one more thing I wanted to say about Homeowners Week. I did ask Paige if she would going forward, help us coordinate the Owners Week. And she has agreed. And I know she's already started working on lining up the homeowners reception and all the other food and stuff for the also for the meeting. So thank you to Paige for agreeing to do that.
Sure, absolutely.
The most important part, Rick, is that Paige and Elisa are gonna go around on Saturday with cameras and videos, and they're gonna be taking pictures and movies and all, so.
Yeah.
Important stuff.
And everybody come join the golf tournament. So. Okay, anything else? Is there any other questions out of the room?
One more
Yes.
question.
I just had an election related thing, and if I missed this information being put out, I apologize. But after the election, we heard who won, but we didn't hear the vote breakup. How many votes each person got, and if that was true, that it wasn't publicized, I think it should be.
Yeah, we have an accounting firm that does the actual, whatever you want to call it, but she's asking if we ever get the percentage of breakdown as to who received the votes, the number of votes. I don't recall that we've ever done that.
We never have published that.
If I might comment on that, is that an owner in the room that's asking?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Well, the TACO documents indicate that the vote totals will not be announced publicly at the annual meeting. And the reason for that, I think, when that was put in there was that for, if there are 6 people running and you came in 6th and have an embarrassingly low vote total, it just didn't feel right to subject that owner to that perhaps public embarrassment. Now, the owner in the room, the question, the answer perhaps, if the question is, how can I learn of the vote totals? Any owner may request that information. The vote totals, that is an official TACO document, and it can be requested. So does that answer the question?
Yes, yes, I was also thinking that if you came in very close, you might be more encouraged to try and run again. So there's that, right?
Did you hear that, John?
I did not.
He said that she felt like if owners knew how close they were, that they may be encouraged to run again if they weren't successful.
And certainly all candidates have the right to request that information, and they are very well able to know what the vote totals were and whether they were first in the voting, second, third, fourth, etc. And by how much.
Would you make that request?
How do you make that request? Is it in writing?
Yes, to me,
You,
as the secretary. The secretary has a responsibility to supply owners with information that are official TACO documents that are available to them by law. And we do that regularly.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then I will make a motion that we officially adjourn the meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Affirmative for Stacy. Any opposed? Okay, we are officially concluded, and I thank everyone for their attendance and their input.
Rick, there will be no executive session, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right.
Gary, for people that live on property. you
Bye,
just
guys.
give them
Thank
the-
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd rather just go downstairs. right? I got